This is Nikhil from the BBC. The question is for the Finance Minister. You said that the G20 now has its own mechanism on climate finance. So does that mean that the $100 billion promise from the West or the developed countries is pretty much dead now?
One more question. Hand somewhere here on the right. Yeah, that's the gentleman. Yeah, you, please, go ahead. Piche, right there.
At the back, please, at the back.
The gentleman there?
Hi.
No, it was the gentleman here. Yeah, you.
Yeah.
No, not there. You're behind you. Okay, if you've got the mic, just ask. We can't waste.
This is Mithil from NBC News. I wanted to ask two questions.
One question, please.
Okay, one question. The absence of President Xi Jinping at this summit, does India see this as a snub towards Prime Minister Narendra Modi, especially with the border issues, as well as President Joe Biden?
You have the microphone. You're next.
So I'm Sahil from ANI News Agency. So what kind of framework can be expected regarding crypto assets among the G20 nations?
What is it?
I saw one hand. Yes, gentlemen. Yes, sir. Here. You have the microphone.
Could you just have that question?
Could you ask the question again on the crypto? I think your question was. Yeah. Could you repeat that, Minister? Ma'am, they could not pick it up.
What kind of framework can be expected regarding the crypto assets among the G20 nations?
Crypto assets.
And in addition to that, ma'am, supplementary question that since we have a consensus on making common framework on crypto assets, and G20 presidency will work with FSBC and
what is
IMF
the
closely.
question, please?
But the joint report of FSBC and IMF says that banning a blanket ban on crypto assets is not a solution. So my question is that is there a consensus on just to regulate it or ban it completely?
Okay. You, last question.
This is Matthew Shooting from Climate Home News. You said this is the most ambitious document ever on climate, but India was pursuing an expanded language on phasing down fossil fuels, while the final declaration basically goes back to just phasing down coal. Are you disappointed with this outcome?
So I think we're running out of time, and I'll close here with that. I do think we're out of time. So I think we're running out of time, and I will hand over the floor to ma'am.
I'll start with the crypto. Well, it's really heartening that you've gone through the report. But the point is, the FSB's report and the IMF's report, FSB's concentrated more on the regulation, and IMF's looked at the macroeconomic implications. So the synthesis paper is something which the G20 membership will go through in detail. There is one more meeting under our presidency for the finance track in Marrakesh. I remember with great sense of responsibility and sorrow the earthquake which has happened very close to Marrakesh. I hope the people of Morocco are in a position to take on, and I was glad to hear the Prime Minister during this session in the morning that India stands with Morocco and we will be ready to do any assistance that the government of Morocco would desire us to do. So with that said, with a heavy heart, the next meeting was scheduled for Marrakesh, and there the FSB report and the IMF, which is the synthesis report, will be discussed, and the materials are all already available in public domain. So it is for the membership to take a call as to how it wants to move on it. A framework or a template, whatever be it. I don't think we've given it a name as yet. And also to now discuss whether it is going to be a regulation only and not a ban. I'm not getting into that debate. It is the reports, the synthesis, and also the early IMF report, both of which have been discussed. You're right in saying this report says this. It's up to the G20 membership to take a call on how it wants to move forward. And that you'll get to know more during the autumn meet of the World Bank. There was a question on climate finance. I don't think it is a question of are you writing off this 100 billion which was promised earlier, and now that you've come up with a newer way of the funding climate. I don't think it is this or that. whatever trickle had come earlier of the 100 billion or what it can come now through the private partnership or bringing in philanthropy or anything else can keep going on that. But the fact remains that now the larger discussion has brought in many more elements of how to finance. So both will have its own role to play because climate issues attain great sense of urgency.
Would you like to speak on? So on the fossil fuel, I'll like to say that if you read through the entire document, it's very ambitious. First of all, for the first time, G20 has talked about tripling of renewable energy capacity by 2030 globally. Secondly, this is the first document which talks about, which has very huge focus on fossil subsidies. And thirdly, this is the first time that there is a huge focus on billions to trillions of dollars in climate finance. There is a huge focus on Global Biofuel Alliance, which will be launched today. There's a huge focus on green hydrogen, and also there's a massive focus on energy, resource efficiency and circular economy industry coalition, and there's a focus on, to my mind, very huge focus on, the document is actually a very strong focus on lifestyle for environment, which is life, which the Prime Minister has initiated, and several studies have said that it can lead to 20%, and IEA study has said that it can lead to 20% reduction in greenhouse emissions. So huge focus on climate action.
So let me conclude with the last question, which is the levels of participation. I think it's for every country to decide at what level they would be represented. I don't think one should overly read meanings into it. What I think is important is what is the position which that country has taken, how much that country has contributed to the deliberations and the outcomes. And I would say here that all the G20 members, and since the question was asked specifically about China, I would say China as well, that China was very supportive of the various outcomes, and it is only because the members